Well, he's finally on his way. Dominick Harris, done with the summer classes. Will he start this year for UCLA?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, because now from till September 22nd, all FanDuel customers, you can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Where we get started today is UCLA. According to Bruin Report Online, they do great work over there, talked about how Dominick Harris finished his summer classes, doing the grad transfer thing, getting his way over to UCLA, his third school in his career from Gonzaga to LMU, and now he is a Bruin. How can UCLA utilize him this year? Well, most importantly, he's coming in to shoot the basketball. This is a guy who was percentage-wise the third best three-point shooter in the country, upwards of 40%. That's something UCLA did not have last year. Mick Cronin made it a specific thing he needed to address in the portal, somewhat in freshman recruiting, and after seeing Trent Perry ball out in the Rico's runs, it's clear that he's got a good three-point stroke, but with Dylan Andrews improving, other players can also shoot it like Bilodeau, Daly at a little bit. It's the guy coming now officially to UCLA, and Dominick Harris, the redshirt senior with an extra year of COVID eligibility. I've talked about him before. I've also said how many years he's got wrong. He's got 2 years of eligibility. This is important for what UCLA can bring because this is a guy who led his team in scoring, was 8th in the conference when it came to 14 points per game, only played in 24 of the 31 games overall, but he made 13 starts, feels healthier, and if he's been healthier in his career, then that's somebody who probably wouldn't have even ended up at UCLA. His career, how the way it's gone, sat out due to a foot injury, which cost him his sophomore year. His freshman year was the year where everybody got that year back due to COVID, and then the last couple of years have been finding playing time in Gonzaga, couldn't crack that lineup, and then in and out of the lineup, missing the end of the season with an injury. He's trying to come in, score the basketball, and be an elite guard presence. The comparison, John Rothstein said it, Bruin Report said it, I can say it, it's David Singleton. That is what they want in what Mick Cronin wants to bring. A guy who can crack the starting lineup, who can be the first guy after bench, who's going to come in, can score 21 points per game, hopefully can defend. That will remain to be seen. Reading what Bruin Report posted, they seemed high on him. And, having to see what he can do, there's going to be a lot of elite defensive talent with what UCLA can bring, right? It's a battle between Sky Clark, Dylan Andrews, Sebastian Mack, Freeney, Perry, in addition to Harris, to get in the backcourt, because you're already seeing Stefanovic and Johnson battle it out, and Johnson's probably going to win that out with his three-point shooting, and most importantly, his elite Jalen Clark-like defense. So mainly what Mick Cronin has done is somewhat try to reassemble his team from 2 seasons ago, which won the Pac-12, which was national championship good, and has greater depth, similar players, similar styles, new names in a new conference. Yes, it's going to be tough to play in the Big Ten. You're going to play some new teams, a lot of travel. You play Arizona, you play Gonzaga. You're going to go play North Carolina in Madison Square Garden. This is a schedule that'll be tough. It'll be a team that'll be battle-tested that needs to iron out the wrinkles and work out the kinks. And even Mick Cronin is going to make a mistake as to what his lineup is, or he's going to think he knows what it is. And I'm not sure where and what part of the season UCLA will figure out their A lineup, or the one that gets the most production with starters, role players, bench players, who's the closing lineup, who's the three-point lineup, who's the lineup that shuts down oppositions defensively, and then on the matchup-to-matchup basis, how is it going to look out? For Dominick Harris specifically, this is a guy who can knock down the triple. Let's say that again and again. And it's up to his defense to see if he can crack the starting lineup, if he's going to be one of them most heavily used bench players by Cronin this year. I'm not really going to speak about his defense because what Mick Cronin got him for was to shoot and score. That's what he got a lot of these guys for, and Mick Cronin has to tell these guys, which he did, and he does his research, they can play and they must play defense, and you cannot turn the ball over or you will not play for UCLA. My thought is, with the injury history of Harris, UCLA probably, this is not an insider perspective, but just looking at the facts here, has an injury history. You don't need to ride him out of the gate as a starter, but if need be with injuries and everything, UCLA can find a way to put him in the starting lineup. He's a guy that can come in off the bench. He can play multiple roles. Maybe he doesn't need a bulk of minutes, and he does have another year of eligibility. How is UCLA going to find a way to utilize this guy? I think it's multiple roles, game-by-game basis. And earlier on, when I projected a starting five, it was not Dominick Harris who is in that. He is somebody who is going to be underrated, maybe even undervalued, but Mick Cronin knew what he got in this kid. And if he stays healthy, could very well at the end of the year crack the starting lineup or be the first guy in the guard rotation off the bench for UCLA. If he's knocking down threes, if he's scoring, he doesn't even need to score 14 a game. But if he's hitting 3 threes at a very high clip, 44, 45%, third best in the country, he doesn't need to score 10 a game. But if he's hitting that many threes and doing it so well, he just might in a very limited capacity. But you already think the ball is going to find Dylan Andrews' hands. It's going to find Sky Clark's hands. It's going to find its way over to Bilodeau. It's going to find its way to Daly, to Kyle down low in the paint. It's going all over the board. And don't forget, Kobe Johnson and Stefanovic want their shots too. Mack likes to drive, and all of a sudden the ball is splitting everywhere. I'm not sure Harris needs the ball in his hands all the time. He's certainly not going to do so with what UCLA brought in. Point guard-wise, backup point guard-wise, this is a guy who I think will come off the bench, shoot the lights out, hopefully does that, and can play some defense and be just another Dave Singleton clone. And the more and more I look at it, it's just more of a repeat of what Cronin did to get that same team he had 2 years ago via the portal, 1 to 2 years of eligibility. When you get a Jalen Clark like Kobe Johnson, you've got the likes of Singleton coming and Harris, who according to Bruin Report has finished classes and is going to the UCLA team officially, not on the website yet, not on the official online roster, but that is what the report is. Now, can the Bruins take advantage of what looks to be a team that is coming together, similar in nature to 2 years ago, might take their lumps and bruises? They certainly lost a couple of games in the Pac-12. They had some ugly losses in the non-conference in Vegas 2 seasons ago. But when Mick Cronin got it together, they dominated, and really the only team that defeated him 2 years ago, besides a miracle 3 from Strother with a few seconds to go in the Sweet 16, was the injury bug. And this year, the team can withstand the injury bug. Maybe not so much at the center position, although they got size, they can play small, they can play big. Mick Cronin has the most depth he's ever had, 1 through 4, and they can still play 5 if they want to have a small ball lineup that can go quickly up and down the floor, score, and defend, and withstand the pressure that the Big Ten bigs might bring. So this is a team that looks very similar, different names, but can bring maybe a little more versatility. Mick Cronin was going to want to press, and that's what they want to do. So if guys who can be up-tempo, press, you want a guy who could shoot a 3 on the floor, that's what Harris brings. The ability to space the floor. You need somebody glued to him or he will make you pay, and he can go score in his own right. I just don't think UCLA is going to need that or ask him to do it on a consistent basis, which is huge that he's officially here, one of the 6 transfers coming in, as one of the biggest gets Mick Cronin got to fix one of the truest weaknesses on last year's team, shooting the basketball and scoring. And they got that in a key transfer in Harris, who has already committed everything. It's already known. Now it's just a matter of formality, which, according to Bruin Report, it's happened. And now I think he's not going to start. He could very well do it. He's a talented kid. But I think the best thing is this later in the summer workouts, slowly bring him in. Don't force him in starting-wise, and he can turn into a Singleton role, maybe in a reduced rate, not starting playing 25 minutes or coming off the bench playing 20, 25 minutes. It'll look a little different. But he is just as important as the rest of the transfers, the returners, and the freshmen are to this team that is very well going to compete for a Big Ten and is, I think, being slept on despite being in the preseason top 25. Take that for what you will. We'll talk next about, UCLA's first opponent of the 2024 season football-wise, Hawaii, because they got their first game coming up soon. Let's talk about some early news and notes, not a full deep dive by any stretch. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. You heard us talk about FanDuel a lot before, America's #1 sports book. We have something a little different for you now, because now until September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That sounds like a steal of a deal because we all know how much we love our pro football. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon at a market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. That is a deal ready for a steal. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, cruising on here into segment 2. We're taking a brief dive, not a deep dive. We're not going super deep. Don't get too crazy on me now because we're not going super deep. Got another week to go into that. But for now, let's take a look at Hawaii, a team who actually had a game under their belts prior to the UCLA game. That's the one advantage Hawaii gets. They'll start a week before. They get the many home games because they got to travel so much. We make so much about the Big Ten travel for UCLA. It's a program in Hawaii that when they do travel for every sport, Mountain West for football, Big West for every other sport, basically, they travel the most. So they know what it's like to travel. Last year, Coach Chang's squad was 5-8, slowly progressing, coming out of the Graham era where it was in shambles. They've won a couple of games, then they won 5 last year, in which they lost at Vandy by a touchdown, couldn't beat a lowly Stanford squad, and then slowly picked things up as the season progressed, put up some points, lost some close games to the likes of San Diego State, was able to beat Colorado State. They ended up putting up 5 wins. So now, with a quarterback who has made 22 consecutive starts, it is up to a Hawaii team that looks to make some noise and shock UCLA because Hawaii has gotten some early season buzz before. That's the big thing, right? You go to the island, it used to be Aloha Stadium, they'd go tailgate and everything. A little different with the on-campus stadium, less buzz, no tailgating, a little different atmosphere when they're right next to where UCLA basketball played basketball for the Maui Jim Maui Invitational last year. Hawaii plays in week 0. They normally dominate these FCS opponents. They're playing Delaware State, but they got Braden Shager, right, under head coach Timmy Chang, who's only 8-18 all time, is trying to build things, and this year where the Hawaii bunch is trying to make a bowl game, right? It's almost similar in different respects to what Hawaii and UCLA are trying to do. Hawaii, they're building a couple years into their plan to make a bowl game, and they want to eventually, I would think, try to be that group of 5 team that can make a playoff. It's a little tougher in this day and age. It's getting tougher for Hawaii, but in the group of 5, they can still make a run. Not this year, but that's probably what the long-term build is. This year, they're looking for a bowl game, and it'll probably be the Hawaii Bowl. For UCLA, you would think, right? They're trying to make a bowl game. First year in the Big Ten. It's anywhere from 4 wins is the over-under, 4.5 wins, to upwards of 7 to 8 wins. Nobody's going 9 to 10 wins. That would be a little absurd for a team that has a head coaching change, but a lot of pieces returning and veteran pieces playing on defense. They've just never played each other with coordinators who have experience at the highest levels, whether it's in college football or the NFL, in Bieniemy and Akaika Malloy. So for Malloy, he's going to be going against the quarterback in Schrager, and he's played a lot. And Hawaii, after so much turnover, they have one of the most returnable rosters this year when it comes to a team that didn't have a lot of transfers. UCLA, same thing. Didn't lose too much after Chip Kelly left. It's because he didn't do so much recruiting that Deshaun Foster had to filter in and then some injuries to bring guys in to UCLA. Okay, so what the Bruins are trying to do is knock off this Hawaii team. Last year they played former Pac-12 rival, now current ACC team Stanford. UCLA is the latest. They're returning the 2021 game. I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, this game actually got pushed back a season or 2 initially. I don't think it was supposed to be in 24. I could be wrong, getting the wrong series, right? Because those change all the time. UCLA is playing this game, and, I'm pretty sure that the Bruins will be prepared. Now, Hawaii will have a game under their belts. They got an experienced quarterback, a lot of players that are returning, and that's a little dangerous when it comes to a team that gets the jitters out. They get their week 1 out. They're ready to play, ready to pop it week 1. For them, week 2. And they play a lot of games, 13, 14 games almost every year if they get a bowl game. Doesn't even include a Mountain West championship game or a playoff. That's absurd in the Hawaii schedule, but they get so many home games. So they're used to it. It's not the buzz that it is with the stadium in the downtown part if it was in Aloha Stadium, but they're transitioning into a new era. Can UCLA defeat them? Yes, they're going to be big favorites. I think they opened as 2 to 3 score favorites already. But that is the only danger. They play week 0. We'll take a look, get a little more into a deep dive for this Hawaii team. But for now, that's what we got. Quarterback that's returning, make 22 consecutive starts, creeping up the Hawaii leaderboard. A coach that's transitioning into the 3rd year. He's trying to make that leap into bowl game territory. and eventually, one would assume, be that program that helps contend and wants to contend into a group of 5 playoff territory where they can steal that 5th and final conference champion spot, right? Because this year you got Boise State, Fresno State's an outsider, you got UTSA. That's not where Hawaii's at, but that's where all these programs are trying to build, get to that spot in the expanded playoff era. Right now, these are 2 teams battling for bowl games in different paths, and UCLA better be ready and not be sloppy under the first game in the Deshaun Foster era. Next, we'll talk about a funny story. Latu maybe would have been destined for another sport if he wanted to and play it in a different way. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, and more. You know, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 120 million plus parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. Easy to make your car the MVP to bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, cruising on here in Locked On UCLA. Final segment. We're talking the Laiatu Latu NFL rugby story. What is that? Well, I was looking on, I think it was written, this article I saw specifically was about Laiatu Latu's potential to be a rugby star by someone on MSN, I think Jake Fagus, if I'm saying the name correctly. But the Bruins, you know, we all know the story of Laiatu Latu. Medical retirements, was promising start Washington. Malloy comes to UCLA, fosters that relationship there, and then everything goes well. They clear him at UCLA, turns into a superstar, first-round pick as a Bruin, where he was absolutely electric for 2 years, one of the best pass rushers UCLA's had, and was clearly the best, one of the best defensive players in the country in 2023, and arguably the same status in 22. But this article I'm reading, and it's talked about, I believe posted earlier today, was that he was nearly a rugby star, right? This is somebody who could have been a rugby player, 23 and a half sacks, 2 picks, 3 pass deflections, 5 forced fumbles, 83 tackles, and a fumble recovery. Polynesian College Football Player of the Year, Lombardi Award, top 15 pick in the NFL. Although there's a report from James Boyd of The Athletic that the general manager of the Seattle Seawolves in Major League Rugby, this is coming from an article I'm reading, was attending, a big-time tryout of sorts. Although what Latu was compared to was Jonah Lomu, a guy who was a massive, huge individual, incredible speed, incredible power, all gifts we saw Latu display on the gridiron. And somebody said, hey, this is a guy that could easily do well in rugby, which is a big sport around the world. We haven't picked it up well in America. But I think the women in the Olympics had a very dramatic finish in the bronze medal match to get the bronze on a last-second try, which was as dramatic as it gets, converted the kick to win the game. That was exciting if you watch that one live. So Latu almost dominated and could have dominated. And heck, even the Colts in early April posted the old Latu high school rugby highlights. So this isn't like necessarily old news, but think about a guy who is 6'4", 250, 260, a crazy combo with the speed, power, and tenaciousness that he has to rush the passer. And eventually, despite all the success, was somebody that his high school coach, who coached him in rugby, said if he had pursued rugby, he would be a top-tier guy in the sport. Could have been playing internationally, would play overseas, he'd be a big name, and everyone around the world would know Laiatu Latu's name. All right? He'd be on the U.S. national team. This is what Lou Stanfield said, his high school coach. He'd be playing in the States for Major League Rugby. He'd be on the U.S. national team. Could have been in France and New Zealand later in his career. And he'd be making money living in France at some point. That is what he could have done if he decided to be a rugby star. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that remarkable how dominant these multi-sport athletes are? I know there's a lot of comparison between the rugby and the football, the Aussie rules football. If you've ever watched an Australian rules football game, That's pretty nuts. But imagine, I'm looking at some highlights while watching this, and Latu man, he pops. When someone catches the ball, he is there. When he had the ball, he was a force pushing everybody. And now you wonder with the neck injuries how much that's a thing, right? Because you're not wearing as much padding, or as what Latu is wearing, the big neck brace generally when he's been playing, because that was a big problem that ended his football career, pretty much his sporting career almost, and it did at Washington. But eventually he got cleared, and you wonder how much maybe injuries played a toll. I haven't read that far. It's not that in this article necessarily. And with no padding and everything, I know they're wearing padding underneath, but it's not the same as you're wearing football pads, helmets, neck brace just to stabilize everything. It's always fun to see multi-sport athletes be dominant, right? Like UCLA linebacker John Vaughn's baseball, football, a little different scenario there. But then you got Latu, who, when you're looking at The Athletic talking about, this is a guy who almost had a tryout, didn't realize it, played in a few drills, and the next thing you know is being compared to some of the greatest in that sport with his speed and size, as well as what he can do moving forward, and could have been an international star. And think, if he was playing for Team USA and the men tried to do something, the Olympics are coming to Los Angeles in 2028. This is all a major pipe dream, but it's amazing to see how well he could have done in rugby. Just looking at a brief highlight reel, and you wonder and think how many more there are, right? You think about the Michael Jordans, if he decided to stay in baseball, and now there's the debate about why he went to baseball, or if he could have stayed, and the players strike and everything. But imagine Michael Jordan stayed in baseball, how entertaining that could have been to see him played out if it worked or did not work. And then you've got Latu. If he went to rugby and stuck with it, could have been a legend. Now, it's a little different when you're making NFL money as a first-round pick with the Indianapolis Colts. A little different popularity. It's the most popular sport in the United States of America, but rugby's popular worldwide. It's just interesting to see how it all plays out for a young man who got drafted 15 overall, right? It's fun, right? So it was a great read, combination of The Athletic, I believe an all Bruin site, just Jake Vegas, boom, craziness right there, all right? So where we're going to end this podcast, hey, we got more training. There's more fall camp news. Probably going to talk about what the freshmen might bring in one of the next upcoming episodes for UCLA. We will dive in a bit more into Hawaii than the very brief dive we did today, and what you Locked On UCLA fans should do. We're talking basketball all the time. Get your tickets. Go see the women. Go see the men. It's going to be a fun year this year. They're officially a Big Ten school. So let's get excited. Get your hands up, Bruins fans. It's 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA, fight. It has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins. Download, subscribe, comment, review. Thanks for your support. Again, now I'm signing off. Go Bruins.